Hi, and welcome to Elenida's Audio Stuff, and this is all about sampler number 2, episode number 2. If you have not seen the number 1 yet, then please go and check out this one from the link down below. But also I want to remind you that I have created a sample pack and a preset pack with sampler that you can purchase from the link down below. It's only £5, so it's like a cup of coffee and a little sandwich, and you support me so much. Let's get into this episode and learn everything rest that there is to learn about sampler. Now. So we're going to continue with the same sample as we were doing last week. And we're going to now go to pitch, oscillator, filter, global, modulation, and MIDI. And MPE, we will also talk a little bit about that. So firstly, let's start with pitch and oscillator. So the first thing about all these sections is that there's a lot of similar kind of stuff, which are these stuff here that repeat in many places. So initial, peak, sustain, end, loop, attack, decay, release, time, velocity, and time. And the same selectors also work in a pitch envelope, as well as in filter, as well as in global options, as well as in modulation. So you can see the same words working in many of the places. So let's go to the oscillator. So we have initial. It's the value of the envelope at the moment of triggering the sample. So I can change it either from here, and you can see that when I go to the initial, it changes also it's here on the envelope. Then peak is that the value, the crossroads between the attack and the beginning of sustain. Distance from here to there and is attack, and from here to here is sustain. Example, when I move the attack, you can see that this area is like extending left and right. Okay, so peak is the value, the distance there, and then sustain is, as I said, some bloody bug. Sustain is that area between from here to here, so it's that square there. Then we have end, so it's the value of the envelope in the end of the release stage. So this is the release stage here. Attack is how fast it's gonna get there. So is it gonna be like how fast is some kind of sound starting, or is it gonna be slow? Sustain is how long it's going to stay there. Release is how fast is it going to come back. Is it going to go there? And how fast is it going to come back? And really, decay is how long is it going to kind of take time to decay away. So there is also this little square there that will make these red. And you can see there's a red buttons on the middle. And these are the slopes. So we can actually make all these areas between like curvy, which is really cool. So they even give smoothness into the envelope. So that's really cool. And that's literally the reason sampler has so many different options, is because there's so many different ways of just being very detailed with things. So it gives you more control. You are in control. But also we have a loop, we have time, velocity, and time. So let's talk about loop modes first. So if I go here, it gives loop, beat, sync, and trigger. So it basically means that when we have the value, the initial value, then the end value. So how many times is it gonna go through the whole envelope, kind of loop that envelope while we are playing? Of course, now it's not about the original sound, but it's about the sound that we are modulating it with. So loop means that envelope re-triggers at the release stage. Again, from here. Beat means that it will actually be quantized, that it will be on a rhythm. Sync is the same as that, so it will be quantized, that it will be attached to time, so it will be a loop in time. But sync is to do with also sync with the live session tempo. So when it has a playback, so when we start the tempo, it will be quantized to that. Trigger means that it will always, every single time that you trigger it, it will start looping it again. So it will ignore the fact that you lift your finger, but it will always notice when you put your finger in it. Time velocity. So the envelope segments will be modulated by the velocity, which is really cool, especially if it's looping. Okay, so if I go to one of these segments here, so example beat, you can see that there's now the actual signature for the teep beat. If I go to sync, I also have the signature, and if I go to trigger, it doesn't allow me to do anything. So if I go to loop, it's the time that it's going to take from moving from sustain, so this area here, to its initial value. So when it's looping, how fast is it going to go from here to there? So now you know how this works. As I said, it repeats in all the other instruments as well. So I'm not going to go in detail explaining all that again, because that was enough explaining to me at one point. So this is the modulation oscillator. Oscillator means that it's making sound. It's creating sound, so modulating it. So we are changing something using another sound. We have FM and AM. So will the modulation oscillator modulate the FM, so the frequency, or AM, which is the amplitude of the samples? Woo, 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 woo. So this envelope is controlling now the oscillator, modulation oscillator. I needed to check that. So volume is really important. So this is the intensity of, so you can't hear modulation oscillator if you don't use the volume. This is without. And now with the modulated oscillator. Modulated oscillator. Okay, that was a little bit of a difference. So we can also add what kind of signal. Again, oscillator is something that creates a wave. So are we creating sine wave? Are we creating saw wave? And this wave is modulating the original signal. So square wave example. Or what's that? Noise? No. Triangle, sine, 4-bit. And then we have velocity again, and that is the depth of the modulation. Okay, so then we have coarse and fine. It's not affecting the frequency that we are working on. So this is the coarse tuning of the modular oscillator. Or we can have fine tune. Just add a little bit of depth, or we can have a fixed one, fixed frequency. And we can have multifunction here as well. So this is the fixed multiplier. Subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to my channel. Okay, and then we have envelope, and this is pitch envelope, so we can really work around with creating really good glides between samples. We can create a really cool pitch movement. So the amount is, so it's the limits of the pitch influence of the pitch envelope. So example, I could put it as plus 12, so it's like an octave higher. And how fast it's going to react, again, is to do with the envelopes. If I want to have a slower attack. Yes, get in there! The envelope is affecting quite drastically how does it work. I have here spread. So actually it creates two detuned voices. So we're going to go in stereo spectrum. We're going to hear a little bit of stuff on the left and right, which is really cool. Then we have transpose in semitones. Then we have detunes in sense. And then we have the Zin's shift. Zen. So it transposes MIDI notes in the key zone editor only. So remember, we have the zones and it's the key zones editor. So we're transposing them here only. Okay, and then we have glide, which is either off, portamento or glide. Portamento is a very fancy word for polyphonic. So it means that many voices same time. And glide is just for monophonic. So example, we want to go monophonic, and then we have a time, which is the time of the glide. So I'm gonna play 2 notes same time. So if I create as 2 samples like this, and we cross them a little bit off from each other. So when you're doing this kind of glide, so now you can hear really well, but I needed to play around with the time a little bit because otherwise I couldn't hear because it was too fast. So when I had it now, you can hear that it goes da, 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 da. So then we have filter and global settings. So global settings I already mentioned a couple times last episode. So global settings are basically effects all the samples in the zone. We have volume. So it's the volume of the envelope loop, right? So this is the envelope and we have the loop modes exactly the same as we have previously explained. Loop, beat, sync, trigger. If you did not watch the whole video, go back to check that out in the beginning of the video because that's really important. So this is the volume envelope of the whole global. So we have the volume velocity exactly the same as we had before. We have initial, peak, sustain, attack, decay, release, time, velocity. We also have pan, which is the global pan control, and random, which is really cool. So we can create random pan going left and right. So this is a time of all envelopes of samplers. So we have lots of envelopes of them, so it will affect the time, so the size of all the envelopes. Then we have time key. So this will again do the same thing as that time. So it will globally shrink or extend all the envelopes, but related to the key. Then we have voices. How many voices can we hear same time? So example, now I have 6. So it means that basically 6 times I can press different keys. So if I put 1, we can only hear 1. I can literally press, so it's like mono. I can only press 1 key in a time. And re-trigger, the R means re-trigger, which I always want to pronounce like Swedish would, re-trig, which I find it funny. And Scandinavians might find it funny, but I don't think anyone else. So what it means that voices, so these voices, example 6 voices that are already playing, are gonna be re-triggered again instead of creating new ones. It can really save CPU for you. So again, your computer is going to process a little bit less, especially if you have a long release and it's going to repeat it many times. So then are you going to have lots and lots of voices re-triggering so many things all the time. So instead of creating new ones, we already have the 6 ones and only those will be re-triggered. This is actually works really similar than any filter, like if you use auto filter in Ableton Live. I have a video about it here. So go and watch that if any of this confuses you. We have a filter and then we have a filter envelope. So as you can see, it's the same controls again. Initial, peak, sustain, end, loop, attack, decay, release, time, velocity, and time. And then we have the slopes here. And this is the amount of the envelope. How much is the envelope affecting the filter? So you can also turn it on and off. You can also move all the stuff here. So it's exactly the same controls as I already explained in this video. So the filter, we have all the different bands here. We have also morph control if we want to. Morph, especially if it's connected to some other things, or if you want to use it with the MIDI controller, is really cool. Okay, so then we have slopes, we have frequency, resonant, velocity, key. Go and watch my video about auto filter example because all this is explained there. And then we have drive, and as you can see now, it's grayed out. So if we go to any of the circuits of here, we can add drive, and we can with this little triangle here, and we can also select is the shaper's output feeding the filter, or is the filter's output feeding the shaper? Also, if you don't understand what shapers are and you're not really sure what the drive means, what is the shaper, what is all that, go and watch my other video all about saturator, which also explains what does the shaper mean. So that will make more sense. And this is the amount of the shaper. So we can add a little bit of a shape distortion to it. Okay, I'm gonna take that off because CPU. And talking about auto filter, which also has a LFO, well, what we have in here is 3 envelopes. We have a lot of envelopes, but we also have 3 LFOs. 3 LFOs. What? I know, right? But first we have aux control. We can route effects from one place to another, a bit like we do in return tracks, but in return tracks, what am I trying to say? Return tracks. Aux basically just means that we can have another place where we have an effect and we send it to somewhere using routing. Here we can do routing using these A and B. As you can see again, we have an envelope, another one. We love the envelopes. We have initial, peak, sustain, end, loop, attack, decay, release, time, velocity, time, and we have the slope. So exactly the same stuff. These can be the envelope that you can send to anywhere. So we could, example, send it to pitch. We can add the amount of the routing. So example, I want 100% of this. So this is a bit like sends. If you turn the send A, this is a bit like that. I can put pitch, and now I can effect with this envelope the pitch. Oh, I had the random there. I'm gonna turn those off now, and we're gonna work with LFOs. LFO works exactly the same way as we have in auto filter. Again, I have a video about auto filter. Go and check that out, because in there I explain how LFO works. We have the same controls. We have the rate, frequency, we have the beat. This will re-trigger every new MIDI note comes in, it will set it to the starting point of the LFO. So we have attack and we have offset as well. You can see that it moves the face of it. And then we have the key. With the LFO one, what we can control is the volume, global pan, the filter, and the pitch. So example, I could go here and add it 100% volume. That's controlling the volume. So the volume going da, da. We have the pan, so we can go left and right. That, or we have the filter. We need to have the filter on for it to work. Very cool. Or the pitch. Fun! Music production is so much fun. And then we have LFO2 and LFO3. And what they are really great for is they actually have all the same options as LFO1, but they also have the potential to control the 2 stereo modulation options. So stereo, we have phase and spin. Phase basically means, can you see there? You can see that we're phasing. So we're basically separating the stereo into 2, and we can do like really cool phase situation with right and left channels. So that we can make it work, we also have A and B routing, the same way that we had in aux. So example, I can go here and put it to volume. And then 100%, and we are now on the spin. It's really cool. We actually have 2 of those, so we have 4 different options that we can route in, and with 2 different settings. That is our modulation area conquered, and then we have MIDI area. So MIDI area basically makes it possible for us to use a sampler as this massive tool for like live performance example with our controllers. So we're first going to talk about normal MIDI mapping, which is possible for every type of controller. But then also I'm going to then talk about MPE, which is enabled to Live 11, and Push 2 has 3 ways to control MPE, which is really cool. Okay, pitch bend is really cool. So many controllers have pitch bend. So I could go to pitch bend, and then from here I could go to the filter frequency, and then I'm going to add the amount. So example, let's go to 100%. So you can do the same thing with key, velocity, and connect whatever you want into whatever you want, literally. Okay, so then if you are in some controller that has an MPE, we can also use this as an MPE controller. Push 2 has MPE control possibilities. I need to go in Push 2. I need to go first into the setup area. Select the pressure to poly, and now it allows me to use MPE. As I mentioned in the beginning, I have created a pack that has presets for sampler, also a sample pack, chords, melody bits, experimental stuff. So it's only £5, which in dollars is, I think, is it more or less? I can't think of the conversion right now. But it's basically like if you would go for a coffee shop and you really support me a lot, buy it. So go and get that for yourself from the link down below. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe because you are very cool. I officially will tell you that you are honestly one of the coolest if you've subscribed and hit the bell icon, and please share this video to all your loved ones. Thank you also so much for all my Patreon family. My Patreon families are here and they are absolute legends. They are there with hang around with me in weekly live streams, that Q&A live streams. We make music together. They can ask any kind of questions from me. They can ask feedback. We have masterclasses. We have so much fun, and they also get presets, free ones. Hey, thank you so much, and please come again. See you next week. You are very, very lovely because you're here. Bye. Bye, 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 bye.